You don't always think about it too much, but good sound design in anime and every medium is much more important than any of you can imagine. As a quick and easy example, just try watching one of your favorite scenes from anime, but with no sound whatsoever. Only then can you realize just how much emotion is really conveyed via the music and sound design in every anime. Hello everyone, this is the RPG Monger, and in recent times I really have been rewatching a lot of moments from the anime that I've seen, and after I've thought about it all quite profusely, there are so many aspects of anime that completely rely on soundtracks and sound design. So let's get into it, shall we? Now, I think it's kind of obvious, but honestly, a lot of things I say here really don't only apply to anime, but all kinds of things, from movies to cartoons, as sound design really is universally important. But first, what makes sound design so important and hard to get right? Well, it all comes down to one simple word: timing. Timing is absolutely key for sound design, and I'm sure you've seen plenty of examples of this without even realizing it. Like, for example, if the anime is action-packed with fights all about, you want to have things that will influence the emotions of the viewer to either get hyped to the max or extremely tense. Say, like when the villain gains the upper hand, right then you accentuate on the protagonist's heartbeat or heavy breathing, or on the other hand, do the reverse for the villain in the event of the opposite situation of the protagonist getting the upper hand. Though this goes for just about every genre of anime out there. Take for example comedy anime, where more often than not, sound design plays an important role in delivering a punchline. Really, just about every goofy scene in any genre of anime relies on sound design, like the plethora of goofy sound effects. If anything comes to mind, it would have to be that trope so many anime have, with the characters spontaneously falling down when something plainly obvious or dumb is said, usually accompanied by one of those said sound effects. But then, there's the other half of it all, the soundtrack and how well it is used. Because why is it that so many anime will have fantastic versatile soundtracks, but then barely put them to good use in the actual anime? Though let's not get too off track. Like before, timing is very key in music placement, with having to insert the best song to synchronize the viewer's emotions with the show. Like in a drama, for example, with a heartwarming scene. So with all of that, now I want to go over the explicit shows that employ all of these forms of great sound design. So yes, I know I just talked about this series yesterday, but how can I not include this in a video about sound design? As I said prior, anime can have amazing soundtracks, but without good sound design, it makes no difference. Cooly is an anime where you can really tell that scenes were made with particular songs in mind. For instance, there is a scene in the first episode where two characters are just leaning against the railing of a bridge at night, contemplating their lives. Just the combination between the sounds of cars zooming by in the background and the song Brand New Love Song playing really does convey the theme of the scene amazingly, and that's another thing right there. One thing that I believe makes this anime just so iconic with not only me but many others is just how most of the major scenes of this anime seem to be completely planned around the music instead of what a lot of anime do where they just slap in the same 5 songs for the entire show. With the theme of growing up and gaining maturity, the sound design of Cooly only further enhances these themes and practically embodies them. Though then of course, there is an anime I just cannot avoid on this subject, as I can say right now, without its splendid sound design, it would be a shadow of itself. Jojo's Bizarre Adventure has a lot of tropes that have become widely known across the internet, but just think about it, most of the time, all of these iconic tropes are entirely dependent on sound design. From the very first episode of the Phantom Blood anime, the show is already putting a great deal of focus on its sound design. Like, just look at this scene. Off the bat, Jojo uses a lot of its sound design on dramatic emphasis, and continues to do so in other parts, but by far, it's in parts 3 and 4 where the sound design truly shines, as correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's one thing Stardust Crusaders can do, it is getting you pumped up, and it's all thanks to sound design. Hell, at this point, it really becomes part of all the characters because Can you even imagine Jojo without his fantastic theme behind him in a fight? But beyond even that, after acknowledging the amazing use of its soundtrack, I have to also talk about the crisp sound design used in battles and whatnot. It may seem like a simple thing, but in this day and age, with such poor sound design like this, it really is quite the luxury. For example, in Diamond is Unbreakable, with the numerous explosions that happen, and honestly just about every stand from the Hand to Crazy Diamond, they all rely on the sound design of the series. But by far, the one moment where the sound design truly shines, even more than the time stops in parts 3 and 4, are, and a bit of a spoiler alert for those of you who haven't finished part 4 yet, when Killer Queen actually uses Bites the Dust. I honestly just have to play the whole thing right here because only then will you understand what I mean. Besides the fantastic visuals, you can clearly see that the entire feel of that scene is a result of Jojo's amazing sound design. So looking beyond the spontaneous sound design of Jojo, there is a completely different way of going about it that I have to discuss. Mushishi is a very unique anime for a number of reasons and relies very heavily on its atmosphere. An atmosphere that is set by not only the amazing artwork throughout the entire series, but its sound design. Though unlike my previous examples, I want to focus on a specific episode of Mushishi, episode 3 to be exact, the Tender Horns. I won't go too much into depth on the contents of the episode as there may be people who haven't seen it, but to put it simply, the episode completely revolves around sound and the lack of it. The sound design employed in this episode is truly something else, really creating an atmosphere that actually aids the storytelling. One explicit scene from this episode, however, that does this perfectly is when the ah goes inside Ginko's ears. Like here, see for yourself. If a show can do something like recreate the feeling of when your ears are stopped up, then it really goes to show what great sound design can do. And before I move on to my next example, let me take a quick moment for Mushishi's soundtrack because it really is used so well in all kinds of scenes, creating an atmosphere that is borderline horror at times, only heightening the mysterious feel of the anime as a whole. In fact, that reminds me of another anime that did something kind of similar. The first Ghost in the Shell movie is something worth noting when talking about sound design, and I'm sure you all know too well what scenes I'm going to be referring to. For something like a movie, setting a theme is probably more important than ever, and off the bat, with the song they used in the opening credits sequence of the movie, it does a wonderful job at doing just that. But then halfway through the movie, we get another sequence of scenes with the song, thus adjusting the themes and undertones for the latter half of the movie. And so I don't get too redundant, End of Evangelion does something pretty similar in a certain choice scene of the movie that, for those of you who know, will understand what I'm talking about. But even then, looking at the TV anime for Neon Genesis, there really is quite the good sound design, something that I notice seems to come hand in hand with a lot of dementia anime. From its mech fights to its more psychological scenes, the sound design of the series really was made for it, and I could not imagine Neon Genesis Evangelion without it. Though now with my final example, Serial Experiments Lain has got to have some of the best, if not the best, sound design I've seen in just about any anime. Not to mention some of the most unique sound design in just about any anime, only further contributing to its strange atmosphere. Like, let me just show you this scene in the first episode. With background noises ranging from soft buzzes to crowds of people, that is only scratching the surface of this anime's sound design. Like Mushishi, this anime mixes voices very well, even more so compared to Mushishi, aiding the mind-bending plot that encircles the characters. Serial Experiments Lain also has a soundtrack that is just as strange as its accompanying anime, and while it isn't used too often due to the majority of the time being taken up by those previously said background noises who increase and decrease in volume, adding a variety of undertones to every scene, you must not forget the reverb and layering used in this anime sound design because it only makes for an even more unique atmosphere, which in turn adds to the major dementia themes this anime has from being in the genre. So as always, some final thoughts before we head off to my outro. While anime is a visual medium, obviously, you must not forget that the sound design accompanying those exact visuals are much more integral than you'd think, and without them, let's just say everything would be a lot more bland. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, do subscribe, and today's cool thing of the day is the new Netflix Castlevania show that kind of jumped up on me as I had no idea it was coming out this soon. Needless to say, it has been pretty great so far. Though that being said, I am the RPG Monger, and don't forget that each and every one of you are fantastic.